Just remind me if I start talking about really personal stuff.
Okay, no personal stuff, nothing that you don't want shown. Okay, so we'll kind of remind you. Okay, so we want to just get start with introductions and a little bit about yourself. I don't know if everybody's met everybody else. I'm not sure. So Edwin Rutch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. And one question is, what do you see as a culture of empathy? Since the intention that we have is to build a culture of empathy, I thought, well, maybe we should start gathering some insights about what people see is that vision. And you think that after 15 years, I'd have a really clear definition of it, but it's still a work in progress. So for me, a culture of empathy is about relational empathy, and that is just having empathy for self, empathy for others, all others, and fostering empathy between people. So it's about the whole relationship of empathy between all people, and also to foster a culture of empathy is to support the physical and systemic systems, the government, the political system, the court system, the justice system. So they're making systems so that they support empathic connection. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I got to get better at articulating that too. So I hope getting other insights I can that'll help formulate. So that's a little bit about me. Bob, do you want to go since you're
okay? Bob Brown. Empathy is listening to understand, not listening to reply. And a culture of empathy has no strident agenda except to listen and understand.
Okay. Bill, do you want
to? Yeah, I'll take a stab. And my feeling is that I would like the people who interact with us to, I have a more process-oriented definition, that the people should feel heard. I know we say it, and I know we mean it, but that they should really feel heard, and they should sort of somehow feel somehow buoyed or supported. And so I think that, to me, although it's hard to put into exact words, it's about that fostering of support for each individual so that they then feel supported by the group.
Okay, thanks.
And Bill, where are you? I'm curious.
I'm at home.
No, I know. Where do you live?
Where am I?
Yeah, where are you from?
Well, I live in Pinole.
Okay, I'm just curious if you're nearby or far away. I know Bob is in LA, right?
Oh yeah,
right.
Sure. No, yeah. I'm in the East Bay.
Okay, so I'm in the North Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Lou Swire. I'm an educator and a filmmaker, and I've known Edwin for about 10 years, and I had infrequent contact with him, and gotten involved in the last 2-3 months with Empathy Tent activities, and I'm interested in doing some kind of public empathy listening something or other up here where I live in Petaluma. So a culture of empathy to me means that in the wider culture, rather than looking at everything through the lens of what is wrong and who's to blame, that the mindset that people would have and the lens that they would be looking through is, wow, this thing that's happening, how could that be happening? What's going on with people that this is where we are, that this is happening? And like, what's my part in it? And what need are people attempting to meet by doing what's happening? And if I don't like what's happening, how could we talk about that and maybe try to find a different way for have that need being met in a way that doesn't hurt other people? That would be a culture of empathy to me, would be that would be the public response. That would be the general response to when there's a problem, not blaming people and wanting to punish people and prosecute people or get rid of people who are problems. That's what it means to me.
Okay, well, thanks for that. So we want to, I could just go over what we would have had planned here if you want to change it or have suggestions for that. We had our introductions. It's on page 2 is the agenda, doing our empathic listening practice. So we could do maybe about 40 minutes of that. And then just review the projects that we have in the works, and also if there's any projects you want to take on. Bob had just, for example, while we were talking, he had mentioned, Bernie Sanders, and who else was having a discussion?
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz having a session. They should be doing an empathy circle. So now he's going to take that on as a project. So be careful what ideas you have, because you'll be recruited. Oh, great. Hey, Pablo. Do you hear us, Pablo? Are you hearing us?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Do you hear us now?
Yeah, I just turned the audio. I just got it on.
Oh, great. We just done introductions. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and where you're located, and maybe a little bit about what a culture of empathy is to you. How would you describe that?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Pablo, and I live here in Richmond. And I think a culture of empathy to me means a culture where people are more willing to engage in communication and really listen to one another and really try to understand one another.
Okay, your video just went.
Oh, really?
You still hearing us though?
Yeah, I can still hear it.
We can hear you, but your video did cut out.
Maybe you push the on-off for the video?
No, I don't think that's it. Yeah, I don't know what that is, because it's not the camera. Let me see.
Let's see, manage participants. Oh, it looks like your camera, no, it doesn't even show that you have a camera. Whoa.
Cosmic.
We got a screen share. Wow. I didn't know you could do that from your computer.
Yeah, that's not it. I was just trying to get it back on. All right, now it's kind of. Do you think I should try to just leave? And
yeah, that might be the easiest.
Okay.
Nice nebula.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Let me see.
Okay, there. That was strange. I didn't know somebody else could share screen. Okay, so it was to do some empathic listening, and then projects, reports, and evaluation. So we could start. How does that look? Is there any other ideas? Any top project reports or different ways of structuring this?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Fine with me.
So we could then start with your videos out. So it could be. It's fine if we don't have your video, Pablo, but it looks like it's not gonna work.
Yeah, that's weird because it was on for a second and I didn't press anything. So
yeah, it's showing here that you don't have a camera on this administrators. So there it goes.
Yeah, I just rubbed it off. Maybe, but I don't know what what that means exactly. But, well, it's back now, so.
Okay, so we want to go into just doing some empathic listening practice, maybe about 40 minutes. And I think everyone has done it before, so we can get started. And the question is just an open question. What is alive for you? You know, what are you feeling energetic about? And what do you have energy for? I mean, I don't know, I'm not saying it very well. I think I'm tired. So actually I will speak to Pablo, and actually I'm going to start it. Okay. So yeah, I do feel kind of tired, and it feels like you know, everything's kind of dark, everything's been smoky. You know, a couple of people.
Time.
Oh, time. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I can do time.
Okay, 5 minutes. Thank you for totally forgot.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, thanks for that. So everything just kind of feels a little heavy, and a couple of people said they couldn't make it, so I feel a little disappointed about that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just reflect that.
Okay, so I'm kind of tired and kind of, well, with all the smoke in the air and everything, just sort of worn out, and then just disappointed that people didn't make it.
Yeah.
People didn't make it.
And celebrating my new T-shirts. I got some new T-shirts. My partner Joan bought them for my birthday. A couple of T-shirts, a couple of shirts, new pair of shoes because my clothes are getting holes in them. So I'm celebrating that.
Okay, so some new clothes, some new T-shirts, new shoes.
And yeah, it's kind of wondering, you know, what to kind of put energy into next. Feeling, I don't know if everything feels a little heavy, and kind of just trying to. I was sleeping, you know, when I was sleeping last night, I thought, oh, I really need more creativity. I was thinking, what is it the need is? And the need was for more creativity. And then I was thinking, well, what can I do for creativity? And I thought, well, maybe more running. And I haven't been running for a couple of weeks because of the weather, you know, the smoke. So anyway, I guess I'm just needing more creativity.
Okay, so a little bogged down with everything and tired, and need some more inspiration and creativity and running.
Yeah, creativity. I'm needing ideas for how to get creative, and one of them is running. And I had some others, but I forgot what they were. So yeah. So with that, I feel heard. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Well, I think I'll speak to Lou.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a while since I've done anything with the empathy tent, so I'm feeling sort of just good to be back, and also I've been pretty busy, and with everything in the smoke in the air as well, I've also been, you know, kind of just tired, kind of preoccupied, but you know, it's good to be back in the empathy tent.
So you've been kind of busy and preoccupied and suffering a little bit physically from the smoke from the fires, but you feel good about being back with the empathy tent group and happy to be re-engaging.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of curious about just what's going to happen next with the group and what we can do and how everyone else is doing as well. And yeah.
So you're curious about how everyone in the group is doing, and you're also curious about like what is next for the empathy tent, what kind of activities or what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling like it's a good place to be back in. It's a good place. I'm in a good place to start again, I guess.
So you're feeling ready to re-engage, and you're glad to be back.
Mm-hmm. I feel heard.
Okay. Okay, I'll speak to Bill.
Okay.
Let me reset the timer. Oh, that didn't work. There we go. That worked. So where am I? So I'm feeling some satisfaction. Dave and Edwin and I worked very hard this last week on writing an op-ed about the empathy tent and its work, and how it's kind of been mischaracterized or misunderstood or ignored at the various public events that it's been at. So when media has been there also, they really haven't done a good job of reporting on what we are doing and like why we're doing it, and even mischaracterizing sometimes, why we're there. So that was a very interesting and creative process of drafting and then editing and then redrafting and lots of discussion about, well, should we start here or should we start there? Is this a clear explanation? What's missing? Should we be talking about the media and how they've been handling us, or should we be talking about, what happens? Should we be talking about the history of the empathy tent, or what should the proportion of those different topics be? And so it was a very rich exchange of ideas and learning a lot about Dave and about Edwin, and throwing in my own thinking into the mix. And it was also a bit of an emotional roller coaster because, I was really excited part of the time. I was a little discouraged some of the time, a little confused some of the time. So that was an interesting process.
Okay.
I'll pause there so you can reflect back.
Sure. Well, it was about, what I heard is your both excitement and trepidation about being in the empathy tent, experiencing the empathy tent out in the real world, how that's perceived by the media and others, and then the process that took both of you, or three of you, creatively to then, craft a response. And so now you are kind of taking all of that in. In the meantime, you have to then effectively kind of go through whatever the 7 stages, I hate to cliche, Storm and Norman, that kind of thing. Of a group and the individual dynamics in order to get that out and to, and then to basically advance a vision, which is more towards, what you three see as true. And I would agree with that too. And then, so now you stand, I hear a lot of excitement and creative energy, and and also fear. Not fear of being afraid, but essentially, it's the Wild West out there right now, and you don't know quite what to expect.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I think the things that were most important to me is I learned a lot in the process, both about the process of writing an op-ed and about Dave and Edwin. And the other was just that it was a roller coaster, both emotionally and creatively. So I'd say, yeah, those were kind of the key things that were there for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You want to reflect those back? Yeah.
Sure. Well, then, distilling it's the process of the creative process, and it's also learning about the other people and you, and also about the process of educating yourself of how to manipulate in a sort of media savvy world, what an op-ed is, what's seen as de rigueur.
Yeah, I mean, yes, no manipulation, but yes, but
right.
learning about what is how about doing that. I've never done it before, so
right, you have to frame it for your audience.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, thank you. And what else? And then there are a number of other things that I've been asked to do in the last week or so, which are also kind of exciting. So the Meta Center for Nonviolence, which is a group up here in Petaluma that I've been involved with for a while. There's some new things I'm getting involved in with them. One is a restorative justice in the schools initiative here. So I've been to a couple of meetings about that, and I'm going to be doing some research for that. And another is a nonviolence and families program where I'm going to be, that's my time. where I'm going to be putting on like a weekly or a monthly class or a series, like a 6-week series for parents and children about nonviolent communication and nonviolence. So I'm excited about that.
Right. So then I heard about your work with the, I'm sorry, I forgot the exact organization, but it had talking about nonviolence in the school, and also a series of lectures that you're going to be doing and workshops for parents and children about nonviolence and nonviolent communication.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I feel heard.
Good. Thank you. Okay. All right. Bob? Okay.
Am I listening to you, Bill?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm, sort of trying to come to grips with this. Again, I know a lot about nonviolent communication, being a special ed teacher for emotionally disturbed kids. What I saw working in the classroom, where we have the ability to pull together sort of like a mini functional society, I don't see in the society as a whole. And it really disturbs me. And so that was my impetus to actually, to go out on something very similar. I had ideas very similar to Edwin, and then I saw you guys. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is to bring comfort and aid to my fellow citizens. I think they're hurting. And so,
let me pause. I gotta reflect here because before I forget it all.
Absolutely.
Okay, Bill. You say you're coming to grips with Empathy Circle, and you are deeply experienced from your years as a special ed teacher for creating a mini society that reflects empathy, and you're hoping to expand that to society as a whole, where so many people are hurting, and you can bring them the healing of empathy circles.
Yes. And in any form, in the empathy circle, whatever they want to say, whatever it's helped for them. So like I plan to go to the Tuesday event on the 24th. I plan to go to the empathy tent there. And so one of the creative ideas I'm going to bring that I had kind of tested out is I bring like 20 stress balls. And I just basically put up a sign that says, provide a semi-plausible story as to why you deserve one and win a free stress ball. And in El Sobrante, it was difficult. I hate to be elitist, but so many people didn't know what plausible meant. So I had a problem with my audience there. But that was sort of the idea. And then also to offer my services in child behavioral communications. That might be a little bit a bridge too far for this Tuesday. But the idea of bringing a little fun, give people a little, a stress ball, something they get there, they engage, they hear about the empathy tent. Maybe they do it, maybe they don't. But that's the sort of idea. It's just sort of like start to create the healing right then and there.
So I hear you saying you're looking forward to the event on the 24th, mm-hmm. where you hope to have a stress ball booth and offering people the chance to offer a plausible story.
Semi-plausible. I have my standards.
To merit the gift of a stress ball, and that gift, they can find healing and a better solution to their life's problems.
Yes, and I had a very poignant one when I went out there. There's a guy who came out in a Satan hat, and you would think that he was ready for some sort of confrontation, but he was such a troubled young man, and he just wanted to, have something, and he just said thank you. He was the most sweetest, most humble guy, that I met that day.
So I hear you say that one of your guests was dressed in a Satan hat, and he received the stress ball and became a totally different person with gratitude and a new way of life for him.
Well, yeah, that might be overstating a little. Okay. Thank you. I've been heard. Thanks, Bob.
Edwin, would you please listen to me?
Mm-hmm.
I am extremely encouraged by the meetings between the NFL players and the NFL owners.
Mm.
Here are men of great physical gifts, and they've got experience in their communities as people of color, which do not reflect the experience of the white owners. And I believe the owners are finally listening to what players have brought to their teams. And their demonstrations are not anti-flag, not anti-patriotism. It is a demonstration to say, we want you to be aware of how many people in this country are being hurt and abused by the authorities.
So I'm hearing that you're encouraged by the NFL, the dialogue that's happening between the owners and the players, and that the owners are hearing what the players are saying about the abuse and struggles in the Black community.
That's right. I feel fully heard.
Oh, well, that was easy. In that case, I will.
Wait. So, Bill, is there more
Oh,
you want to say? Or Bob, is there more you want to say about that?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
you sure?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Wait. I'll take that back.
See, I knew it.
I did too.
This afternoon, my wife and I took my mother-in-law to the train station. And as we were leaving the train station, there was this young woman, probably late teens, early 20s, weeping inconsolably, terribly distraught. So we stopped, and my wife got out and said, "What can I do for you?" Her boyfriend is a drug addict and dropped her off at the train station with no means of further transportation. And so we went, and luckily there was a policeman giving that guy a ticket across the parking lot. So we said, "Can you please help this lady?" Because we knew of no resources in that area because we was, way out of town. So we left her in the policeman's hands and hoped that got her something. It was just, and she had cigarette burns on her arm, and she was, and her parents are addicts, and talk about the worst of what can happen to you.
Mm-hmm. So when you went to the train station to drop off your mother, did you say?
Mother-in-law. My wife's
Mother-in-law, that you saw a woman that was weeping, and you actually stopped, asked her what you could do to help her, and she shared with you her story that her husband who was a drug addict, had left her there without any money. Also, she has other family problems, and that you then found a police officer and connected her with the police officer to see, to kind of help contribute to helping her. And you weren't familiar with the area, and that was something that you felt you could do.
Right. I feel fully heard.
Okay.
Now I'm done. Capital D.
Now you're thoroughly done. You're fully heard. Okay, then I'll speak to Lou.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh. See, I'm just trying to see what's alive in me. So, a week or so ago, my partner Joan and I were here talking, and somehow Lou ended up doing a mediation between us. It was like on the spot mediation in a live kind of a conflict. It was really pretty amazing. And so Lou's going to be supporting us with some dialogue. I don't know, that just came up to me, and I just wanted to kind of share that, because I really, really appreciate that. And just the spontaneity of how it kind of came up, and how it was mediation in real time. I was kind of like celebrating that.
So you're remembering something about this circumstance or whatever. What came up in you is remembering the little bit of mediation I did with you and Joan, and you're just feeling a lot of a surprise, or kind of you're feeling a lot of delight in the surprise of that, and feeling appreciation for it. and it sounded like maybe also looking forward to more of it, which we've kind of planned in the future.
Yeah, and now I feel a little anxiety too. I got to deal with the relationship.
And so you're feeling some anticipation and anxiety around that also.
Yeah, which somehow led to the reminder of having set up the empathy tent at in Berkeley, and Timothy Regan was there. He's an NBC trained person, and he was there to listen. And a woman came by who was like really frustrated because she just been catcalled by some guy who's like semi-homeless looking, and she was really frustrated. And Timothy just started listening to her like on the spot. Oh, you're feeling really upset? And she said, yeah, that guy over there, you know, he's like doing these cat calls, and why do they do that to us women? You know, why do they bug us like that? She felt just really upset about it. And then the guy came over, and I kind of went up and said, oh, yeah, you know, started listening to him. Said, oh yeah, I feel like, you know, respect is important to me, and you know, and he was feeling like something was wrong here. And I started empathizing with him, and then listening. And then he went over and started talking to the woman, and then Timothy was kind of holding it. He did a really beautiful job of listening to her, listening to him, and then getting them to empathize with each other. And it was really quite an amazing on the spot, you know, spontaneous kind of a mediation that happened.
So the on the spot aspect of what I wound up doing with you and Joan reminds you of this kind of on the spot thing that happened that was also surprising and beautiful to watch, which was at the empathy tent when Timothy Regan helped a woman that had been catcalled, and then the guy who did the catcalling came into it, and you were part of it too. So the two of you kind of worked together, and they wound up talking together with both of you about it, and it was a wonderful success and a surprise, but both of those things.
Yeah, it ended it ended really well in the sense that, you know, Timothy kept him on track, you know, reflecting back what she had said. And, you know, at first she said like 3 points, he reflected back 1 point, and then he was about going into his own story. And Timothy said, no, she had these other points. Can you respect that? And he kept her on track. And then they started dialoguing. And then finally it turned out she was giving him advice at the end on how to treat women. Said, don't just say this. You can say, oh, those are nice earrings, or something kind of subtle like that. That she was giving him tips, and the whole thing ended like, and Timothy was like totally elated. You know, that he had been able to mediate this on the spot, you know, unprepared, just doing it in the empathy tent. So it was kind of a beautiful kind of event.
So in remembering it, you're recognizing some of the specific things that he did that were effective, like noticing if every point, all the points that were made were reflected back, and if not, saying, wait, you know, what about this point? What about that point? So that complete listening was happening, and how that really kind of transformed the situation, and that in the end, they actually were dialogue, and she was, instead of being angry at him, she was giving him advice on how to talk to women. And like, what an amazing, wonderful outcome. And you were celebrating that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel heard.
Terrific. Okay, so I'll talk to Pablo. Are you willing to listen to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
It's a request, not a demand. Let's see. What do I want to talk about? So there are a number. So what I'm noticing about myself, which I'm both celebrating and feel some fear about, is the number of things I'm getting myself involved in. So this morning I was part of a call, also on Zoom, with nonviolence folks. This is a weekly thing that I'm on. I think it's called the Nonviolence Online. It's the Online Nonviolence Hope Tank, or nonviolence online news. I'm not sure which, but we read some news in Waging Nonviolence, some kind of article in there, and we wind up discussing it. And it's from people from a variety of places. So there's that, and then there's this, and then there's a monthly thing that I'm involved with Meta, which is called the Hope Tank, where we get together, nonviolence people get together, and they just talk about whatever's on their mind. And what other groups, what other weekly groups am I involved in? I can't think of one at the moment. And I'm both celebrating, I love the social contact and I love the intellectual stimulation. And I'm just a little worried about whether, like, I've got myself involved in too many things and I'm not going to be able to really follow through on all the things that I've said I would do, because that's important to me, is to do what I say I'm going to do.
All right. Okay. So you're feeling not overwhelmed, but a little concerned about being involved in these at least 3 different groups, and at the same time, you care deeply about them, and they provide some social and intellectual value to you, and you care about that, but you're also worried that maybe you won't have the time or energy to fulfill your goals in all of these different groups, and you'll end up being overwhelmed.
Yes, thank you. You heard me beautifully. That feels good. Yeah, and I think so. My fear is around. So I think one of my weaknesses is being attracted to things and getting involved in them and having ideas and wanting to follow through on those, but getting involved in too many things where I don't then have the bandwidth to follow through on everything that I would like to. And so I want to be mindful. I want to be really the other hand, and then the other thing that happens to me is I wind up getting involved in other people's things instead of my own things, like the things that are important to me. So I'm trying to be really mindful about that. And I wouldn't say that I'm involved in anything right now. I've not committed to anything that I don't actually care about. I really do care about all the things I'm involved in. So I think I'm just reminding myself to be mindful about how I'm spending my time, what I'm saying yes to, and to make sure that how I'm spending my time is right for me. And if not, to let people know and say, I need to back out of this summer. I'm going to be doing this, but not this, or, so that I don't just get swept up by social obligation and I'm not tracking whether it's really working for me or not.
Okay, so you're trying to be mindful of all of these activities and what your capacities are for all of them, and you do care about all of them, but you just want to make sure that you're in a good place to do everything you want to do with those different activities. And if you can't, then you sort of have to be aware of that and prioritize one over the other or something like that.
Yes, thank you. And I'm realizing, listening to you reflect it back, I'm realizing that, what attracts me is, so the social aspect of like getting together with you guys and talking, that's stimulating for me. And it's also emotionally satisfying to be with other people. and that's also motivating for me. So there's an aspect of wanting to get involved that, because I have more motivation if I have social obligations, or if there's a social connection around doing those things, as opposed to just like me being all by myself and working by myself, and there's no social context in which I'm doing it. So that's helping me see more clearly that the reason I want to do these is because there's a socially satisfying aspect of it and motivational aspect of it for me.
Okay, so there's this, social and emotional component to what you're doing in the Empathy Tent, and also I guess in the other organizations, and that's very satisfying as well, and that's a big motivation for you to want to do these. all these different events.
And wanting to do the work too, the work
Yeah.
associated with that I said I would do. Yeah. Thank you very much. I feel heard.
Okay. Well, I think I will talk to Bob.
Okay.
Okay, so in a sort of like Lou, I am feeling a little bit like I have a lot of things going on. Mine aren't so much organizations like these. This is really the only, sort of, I wouldn't say exactly activism, but it's more, on for on the front of trying to promote something socially good and some sort of political. But I also, like, I'm a full-time student and I'm in the student government and I'm applying to transfer and I have all these other things and just having a social life as well. So, I'm also it's a balancing act of all of these things. And I think I'm handling it well, but it is, there is that little part of me that wants to just check myself and say, like, hey, well, I need to organize my time around this and around this so I can get all these different things done. And yeah, so I'm feeling sort of reflective about that, I guess.
Okay, so you are happy to be involved in the social activist group, the Empathy Tent. You're also a student involved in student government, and you're also preparing to transfer to a different school. So you want to be aware of all the things you're involved with and check yourself to make sure that you're contributing wisely and being good to yourself too.
Right, yeah. And it's not when it's not overwhelming to think about these things, it's also energizing. Like I don't like to be sort of, not busy and not have a lot to do. I do like to have, especially if it's something meaningful. And this group, I think, is one of the more, what I consider to be at least one of the more meaningful things that I'm sort of involved in. And so I do really enjoy that. I really enjoy, like, feeling that I'm a part of something and I'm, like, using whatever skills I have or just my time and energy to promote something that I care about.
So you like being involved in various activities and you want to make sure that you are contributing your gifts and skills and making it a worthwhile effort.
Yeah, exactly. I feel heard.
Okay. Bill, would you listen to me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm 66, I'm retired, and life is freedom. And choosing to be part of this group is a wonderful use of that freedom. And I'm looking forward to making a good contribution and see what happens on the other end.
So you're 66, retired, and you have freedom. You are footloose and fancy free, and but you've come to this group and you feel the real value in participating in something with these goals, and it's it brings value to you.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Anything else?
Nope.
No. Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to Pablo.
Okay.
And so, Pablo, in seeing you, it kind of comes back to me, my struggles as a young man and having to put it all together. And, and I feel appreciative that something like this, appeals to you, a younger person, because it helps me understand. I believe these values are good, whether you're young or old or whatever, ethnic group or religion. And I'm just feeling really appreciative that that it means that to you. Not that I don't know that there are millions of young people who feel that way or to patronize you, but it's a nice real-time affirmation of the power of the message. And that's it.
Right. Okay. So you're feeling appreciative, I guess, to see somebody my age being involved in this, and also, um, holding these values, which you think are sort of, universally good, or something that anybody, regardless of age or any other kind of affiliation, could benefit from.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. I'm not sure I really have anything to say, actually. Spoken a lot.
Well, we could actually close then. That was about 40 minutes.
Okay.
So kind of end with that. Thank you. So
I just want to check in with you, Edwin. Did you have anything more you wanted to say?
no, I was. I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of like it's on. I need like a couple hours. I had actually thought there's these different groups out there. I thought as a sample, I could offer myself as a sample. I've done that before with like the focusing community, and also the empathic listening community out there. So you can use me as a guinea pig, and we can record it. And I've done several of those. So just get hours and hours of listening from lots of people. So anyway, so but I do feel heard at this point. So I'm ready to move on. Thanks for asking, though. So we want to talk about the project reports, and just go down the list of what we've done, what's in the work, and any ideas going forward. And that's on page 2 of the that web of the Google Doc. And so the first one, Lou had mentioned it. Dave initiated writing this article. The idea was for the New York Times, and then brought in Lou and I. And so we've been working on this, and it's really Dave and Lou primarily who really worked on it. And I just want to second all the things that Lou said. It was really great to be working together and kind of hashing everything out. So it seems like we really got to know a lot about each other, kind of our ways of thinking, and we did some of it with empathic listening, so trying to dialogue on how to create this, and it was just sent off to the New York Times as an op-ed, so we're kind of keep our fingers crossed. So that was one project. Did you want to add any comments about that, Lou? Any more?
No, I mean, well, maybe just, so for me, something that's really interesting about a collaborative, producing a collaborative product like that is it really is an opportunity to find out, whether what I believe and what I think and how I would express myself, how that's different than what Edwin thinks or Dave thinks. And so it was a way of sharpening my own thinking about what we're doing. And it was a good opportunity for me to understand how the places where I am in alignment and maybe not so much in alignment with others. And I'm happy to report, I'm very much in alignment, almost 100%. Yeah. So that's all.
Okay. And one of those sessions that I'd done with the focusing, I was on my writer's block. So there's a video out there, an hour-long focusing session of me talking about writer's block. So this was really good to have 2 other people who are really good at writing and hashing this out. So this was really, I really got a lot out of this. And I think maybe this will do a lot to kind of shift just the pain of writing. It's a very painful, tedious process. Even though I wrote 3 computer books, I think that's what turned me off from writing. So that was
actually, I do want to say one thing. So this was a lesson that I learned about collaboration from a guy that was the best collaborator I've ever worked with. So and this was a number of years back, and I'm not sure that I can say that I did this well on this project now that I'm reflecting on it. So he said to me, most people's most people's idea of collaboration is that you try to convince the other person to do it your way. And the reason I say he was the best collaborator I ever worked with was because when we would talk about something, he would take whatever I suggested and figure out a way to incorporate it. And so my ideas showed up in whatever we were doing. So I really felt a part of. I felt like I was listened to. I felt like I was understood, and like I mattered. And and so, like I said, he said to me when I talked to him about it, he said most people's idea of collaboration is that the collaboration is about convincing other people to do it your way. And he was saying collaboration really is about recognizing that everyone has something to contribute, and that in a good collaboration, you take something from everybody and you put it in. And it's not about expressing one person's idea, but it's about expressing everyone's ideas. Now, of course, there are some limits on that, because if the ideas are very divergent, then that doesn't really work. But anyway, so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, it's beautiful for me. So, okay, there was the second one. Pablo had initiated this. Do you want to talk about setting this up, the James Damore, kind of how you came about with that? And
yeah, sure, because I guess not everybody knows everything about that. So back when it was before Free Speech Week at UC Berkeley, when Milo and his camp were in the process of sort of preparing everything for that, it was I think like very disorganized on their part, because they had this list of speakers that they put on the website, and I guess not everybody had consented to coming or even being on that list. I found that out later. But anyway, when we were preparing to make an appearance at Free Speech Week before it got canceled, I sort of went out and I looked at the list that they had on the website, and I went through all the names on the list, and I got in contact with everybody that I could. Some people didn't have public contact information available, and so I sent emails and Facebook messages and that sort of stuff. And James Damore, the former Google employee who wrote this sort of contentious memo about ideological echo chambers and sex differences between men and women, he was the only one who actually replied to me. So he said he would be interested, and then the Free Speech Week got canceled. It was a big mess, and he had never consented to actually speaking there in the first place. But nevertheless, he was interested in sort of what we were doing. So I emailed him back and forth for a while, and then I actually got on a Skype call with him and explained who we are, what we do, what we're interested in, what he could do with us or what we could do with him. And then he and I and Edwin got on a Skype call, and we talked more about the empathy tent, and we actually practiced sort of an empathy circle, and James had a lot of interesting questions. Edwin answered some of those questions, and then we sort of talked briefly about what James would like to do with us, and we decided we were going to try to contact some people who he could talk to and hold an empathic dialogue with, and we did that. We got Indy Young, right? To dialogue with him, and that did happen on Tuesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yesterday.
So there was that, and we were still in the process of sort of getting more people, and I was going to do that, but I had decided to wait until after the Indy Young thing, or the dialogue with Indy Young. So I still haven't done that exactly. I haven't drafted any emails or anything. But I am sort of curious on how that dialogue went, because I wasn't able to see it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. We just did it yesterday. We went for about an hour and 45 minutes. And when the three of us were doing an empathy circle, I think we did almost like an hour with him, the three of us of doing empathic listening. He had a lot of questions about empathy, and we were doing it within an empathic, with active listening. And I thought it worked really well. It was fairly easy. He was a very good listener. And then yesterday with Indy, Indy was at the last meeting that we had online, and we were talking about it. And she said, well, I can't quite remember how it happened. I thought, well, she has insights, and she works in high tech and has an engineering background, is familiar with some of the issues. So we invited her to start with like the first empathy circle, which we did yesterday, and it worked pretty well. It was more of a meandering kind of, it was about his memo, but it wasn't like really focused and or contentious. It was, very amiable, kind of an exploration of it. It seemed to go well. It seemed everybody, felt good about it. And then I haven't posted. He had a request. We didn't post it for a couple of days. So there's some issue that he has that he wanted to wait before posting it. So, maybe by Friday or so, I think it'll be posted and everyone can see it, like the full hour and 45 minutes. And so we're looking at what's the next step. And last night I was a little, tossing and turning, thinking about, things, and somehow thinking about creating more creativity. And then the idea came, well, what about an empathy circle with James Damore about empathy? Because he, in his memo, he says, one of the suggestions is Google should de-emphasize empathy. So empathy kind of gets in the way of rational discussions and has other kind of critiques of it. And so we want to set up, I asked him about setting up an empathy circle, which is more of a conflict. Like I'm saying, we need more empathy, and he's saying we need less, and that Lou would be the mediator between us. And so I sent him that, and he just replied, said, I thought we actually largely agreed on empathy, that I was just using the wrong word, right? But I want to get him to actually do a press release and say his paper was inaccurate. He's actually supporting empathy. And I don't know, so I'm trying to see if we can kind of get something, going there. So he might be so amiable, says, oh yeah, I guess I misunderstood the word or whatever, that it won't be the conflict that I'm kind of looking for. But if we could have him, say, oh, I really misunderstood empathy, and put that out there and kind of change his memo, it really could get a lot of publicity. So, and stimulate a dialogue, within the different communities. And then there's also the other, another circle. He even mentioned somebody else. He sent 2 emails today of a list of some of the names, on that Google Doc. There's a list of names who were suggested that we have in the empathy circle, and he just mentioned another person. So he seemed to be good with that list of names of people, of women who have written about, with feminism and discrimination and so forth in technology, and a couple other, kind of topics. So anyway, so there's 2 kind of possible steps going forward, and this could really help in fostering dialogue, I think, within the tech field itself. And I have a tech background, having worked in Silicon Valley, so I feel pretty excited about doing this, bringing this this dialogue into the tech field. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if any thoughts on that or comments or.
No, that's pretty encouraging, actually. I mean, I knew he was. It seemed like he was into the empathy tent, and the fact that he went out and suggested even another person is good, and now we have sort of 2 things to work with.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a good thing. I think he will be a good. But we'll have a good relationship with him. He seems very enthusiastic about it.
Listening to you describe it, Edwin, I had the insight I had this idea pop up that if the other people who are invited, so it seems like the best group of people to have in an empathy circle to discuss that, if you're trying to have an impact on the tech industry, would be a variety of tech people. So like a programmer, a designer, a product manager. I mean, he's a programmer, right?
Yeah, he's senior engineer, so he actually led a team, but a programmer.
So, you know, a variety of the kinds of people that work in tech would be, and with a mixture of genders, would be interesting, I think. And the idea that inviting some of the academics that are the people that he kind of cited in his memo, I'm not sure that they, you know, one of the things about an empathy circle is that the idea is you're all participating as kind of people, not as a role. And you're there to listen to others' personal experience and thinking and sharing your own personal experience and thinking. And I'm thinking that the academics are more going to be there to like make an argument, like they have an intellectual argument that they have developed. And they're going to think that their role is to be there representing their intellectual argument. And the purpose of an empathy circle isn't really to make intellectual arguments, I don't think, academic arguments. But I'm just talking off the top of my head now. So, and I think what triggered me most was you saying, you know, I really hope this has an impact on the tech industry, like could have it. And that made me think, well, so it should be tech people. If we're trying to have an impact on the tech, it should be a group of tech people, tech people that would have other points of view.
Yeah, Indy was mentioning management too, like it's some of the management as well as the diversity trainers. There was these diversity trainers going in, and they were one of the constituents of that he was, you know, kind of trying to address. He had actually tried to talk to them, and had, you know, and he felt they just didn't even respond to kind of his comments, and so it would be, yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so variety. Yeah,
reflection.
Yeah, so more in the tech field than kind of the academics is kind of what I'm.
I mean, what do you think about what I'm saying about people who are academics who've developed a certain argument, you know, a line of reasoning?
Yeah,
they would just be there to give their line of reasoning, right? Kind of as an expert.
Yeah, it's if it was Paul Bloom, we got kind of like issues. He and I we've kind of, you know, gone back and forth about, you know, him saying, hey, you should be ashamed of what you're doing and this kind of stuff, and you know, so it's kind of there's a personal kind of an aspect to it there too. So it could be, I guess what I'm saying is it could get personal in some sense. I had also done what I call a philosopher's empathy circle. And it was with two philosophers, and it started off very much like that. You know, they got their arguments, the counter arguments, but it took like almost an hour, a little bit over an hour, and it kind of like went beyond their arguments. It's like they were then starting to suddenly get into new territory in these issues of guilt. What is the relationship of empathy and guilt? You know, I don't know. And it was they didn't have like the answers, and so it seems like there might be, what?
Dialoguing about.
Yeah, it was dialogue. They were going beyond their arguments, but it did take a while to get there. So it could be like the beginning, it's just, you know, back and forth, unless there's a personal contention between the two, which there is between a lot of the academics. They kind of don't like each other. So,
well, so maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it would be okay.
It could be a combination of the two, too. You know, you're going to have some of this, some of that. So it's kind of a learning experience too. Yeah, we're kind of pushing the edge here of kind of, yeah. So that was that project. Let's see if there's nothing else on that. I'll move on to the next one. Okay, and that's next Tuesday, the 24th. We have the Empathy Tent pop-up at Sproul Plaza at UC Berkeley. And there's a class there of professor there, Stanley Klein, And he has a class of 12 students who it's a class on free speech. And he wanted to bring his class to the empathy tent. And they have almost an hour and 45 minutes for this. And it would be around 1 o'clock on next Tuesday, which is supposed to be good weather, in the 80s. And so I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure what if he was up for. I think he was. So we'd set up the empathy tent, around noon or so, maybe even 11. Offer, listening to the students, kind of just have a presence there, and then the class would come, and then we would do empathic listening, like we did. Lou was there before some of these, where we had the class come, and then we divided up and had facilitated empathy circles. So that was the plan. We would talk about what the empathy tent does, and then hold some empathy circles with them. And it'd be good to just be back out on Sproul Plaza, have a presence there. So I don't know if anybody can make that. If I know Bob can't. You can. You said you would. Yeah. Cool. And bring your stress balls. And there was another work.
You make it.
You can.
What time is it? From when to?
The class is from 1 till. You're kind of breaking. I think the class is from 1 till 3, so we'd start maybe by 11 or 12.
Okay.
Do you think you can make it, or?
I might be able to.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Pablo, do you have any?
Tuesday from 11 to.
The real time is 1 till 3 is the important time.
Yeah, I don't think I can make that, actually.
Okay.
I have class that day.
Oh, and like before, if it is there.
Well, my class is like 1:30 to 2:45. And before that, sometimes I also have obligations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So that's, we haven't been to Sproul Plaza since the free speech week. And so I think it'll be good to be there again and just have a presence and connect kind of before the winter. Once it gets kind of cold and rainy, it's a little harder to do. So.
Edwin, have you heard any more from Sandra?
She sent an email. I thought she was going to be here. And Sandra, she sent an email just that, yeah, I didn't really follow up, and I don't know where that. It took her a while to get back, and she wanted to check in with the class, and I think I'd given her the info. And
okay, I was just wondering if you'd heard. So I just made a note to email her.
Mm-hmm. I didn't really know what to do, like an activity. It's like it seemed like she was open to doing some kind of a workshop, but we didn't. We had all these other things going that you just didn't know how to really follow up, like a real, an ask or something. Do you have any ideas of?
I need to review our email exchange from before, and then.
Okay.
This is a woman, for everyone else. This is a woman that is an administrator at UC Berkeley, like in student services or student life or something like that. And she came by the empathy tent. She really liked what we were doing, and she said there was a need for it, for understanding this kind of thing within the student services organizations. And she has a lot of contacts on campus. So, and afterwards, Edwin and I had a little bit of email exchange with her, but I haven't seen any. I'm just reminded that I have not seen anything in a while.
Yeah, so it would be, we thought it could maybe do a workshop there, do an empathy circle training. They have space.
Right.
So that's a possibility. Yeah, definitely. And so, yep, then there was, I had spoke to Dave. He sent off his, he's been working pretty hard on the article, and he's now very interested in connecting with leaders, kind of social leaders, and trying to find people to do empathy circles with. So I'd mentioned that, Bob. So that's someone to talk to about Bernie Sanders, and like what can we do to who could we bring together for that? And another person is Virginia. She was in one of the previous Wednesday meetings, and she was interested in. She had contacts with Antifa and Cornel West, so she was going to work on connecting with them. So one project is connecting with higher profile, people like James Damore and others, and doing empathy circles with them. So Dave is, really interested in that, who we could bring together. So he's just starting to think about that. So that's any thoughts about that? Okay.
Well, I'm going to take your suggestion and try to find two wheels and get them in the same video conference and try to set that up.
Who's with who?
Two big wheels.
Oh, find big wheels.
Two elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have someone you're thinking of?
I do.
Okay, good.
Do you want to share that, or?
Yeah. Well, okay. Years ago, Tom McClintock was our state assemblyman, I think, either state assemblyman or state senator. And his term ran out, so he moved to Northern California in the mountains and is now congressman from like Placerville and places like that. Big NRA recipient. They send him a lot of money. And our current U.S. congressperson is Julia Brownley, Democrat. So I'd love to have Tom and Julia talk about the pursuit of happiness and just listen to each other and see if we can try to find some rapprochement.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that was one project. Oh, sorry. Was there more?
So I'll pursue that.
Okay, great. There was also the idea of having congressional representatives have empathy circles with their constituents. And I had started on that with our local congressman, Mark DeSaulnier, and he actually said he would do it. And they said, his staff said in the winter. So it's getting to be, moving towards winter. So that still could be, something that we can do. And maybe we can get some models of that. It could be replicable, and maybe since it's an election year, there might be kind of an opening for that with the maybe empathy circles with the challengers. Something there. They might say, "Oh, I'm open for doing an empathy circle," but they're kind of wanting publicity and so forth. So there might be some way of getting them involved. So that's something that I think, So anyway, just kind of brainstorming around that. Okay. So there's another project, the Empathy with Blue Voters. We did with Lou and Lisa and Joan. We did a presentation, which we talked about before, and we just had our meeting again yesterday. So there's kind of like a project I'm working with too, like doing empathy circles with blue voters, and so that's kind of in the works. And I want to hold some online empathy circles with that group, but haven't been organizing anything around that just in the last week or two. But that's still in the works. Sandra, who was at the last meeting, she has NBC background. She's interested in articulating the vision. So it's around that whole building a culture of empathy. So she's working on that. And then Lou, you got the intro video. We're still plugging away the other stuff.
I don't have anything new to report on that. I made no progress in this last week. So I'm sorry that I don't have anything new to report there.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy with all these other projects. So yeah. So that's pretty much it.
Is the article on your website or the New York Times op-ed piece?
No, it hasn't been posted anywhere. We've sent it to. Did Dave send it to the New York Times? Is that where he sent it?
Yeah, he sent it off today. Uh-huh.
Okay. Would you be making it available?
Probably one way or another. We don't want to, if a paper is going to publish it, we don't want to undercut that. So we need to be
Gotcha.
careful about
Okay.
that. But yeah, I would say, obviously, if it gets published somewhere, we're going to send the link around. And if nobody will publish it anywhere, maybe we'll publish it on the Empathy Tent website. We haven't really talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
What we would do if it doesn't get published anywhere.
Probably Huffington Post can usually get an account with them, or Huffington Post or Daily Post.
On Medium, that might be a place to
Medium?
do it. About Medium.
I don't know about.
So Medium is a alternative media website where people post stuff, and that would be a very appropriate place.
Yeah, there's a couple of those type of sites that Google News indexes, so then it ends up in Google News. So, but that's kind of Dave's been kind of leading that, so kind of leaving it up to him what he wants to do.
Another place would be, the place that published the article about the Empathy Tent with the guy. What's his name? You sent me the article.
That was Daily Kos.
Yeah, the Daily Kos. They might.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, I think, to get an account there. I think the Huffington Post might be a little bit, wider circulation. But
I think so.
Yeah. So that was kind of it for the reports, or things that we're up to, and if you have any kind of projects, anything you want to add? I think everybody's pretty busy, and so that's kind of it.
Okay.
It's a lot. I think we've really done a lot. We've set up the tent, we've done these workshops, we've done an article, we've been doing these these circles, more. So it's been, you just keep cranking off one kind of project after the other. One thing is maybe what kind of the vision of what we see going forward, would maybe just a short comment about that. For me, I thought we need an Occupy Empathy. I'm imagining actually, setting up on Berkeley Sproul Plaza and having a list of demands, and we're not leaving until Bill is getting interested now. So is Bob.
Militantly reasonable.
What?
The militantly reasonable.
Yeah, it's we demand dialogue. We're not leaving here until it's and the idea was with the congressional representatives, right? It's we asked our congressional representative, will you talk with us? They'll probably say, no, we don't want to talk. We don't have time for you. And then we set up the Empathy Tent, and we're here until you talk with us. And also, with this James Damore, one thing is I think they should have had an empathy circle with him and Google, right? I mean, they cut off the conversation with him, said, you're fired, we're not talking to you. Conservatives all pissed off, about it because they feel they're slighted. And so I was thinking, well, in Empathy Tent and Occupy Empathy, there's a park next to Google, Silicon Valley. And it's we're here until you have an empathy circle with James, and just kind of make an issue of it. So I'm kind of thinking of how to have sort of an activist, an empathy. It's what are the issues and how to, how to kind of have some kind of action. So I just wonder how that resonates, because it's kind of a tricky thing, but my sense is society is not going to take us seriously unless we do something. Myself, it's
yeah. I think that we do risk the risk being associated with the conservative movement and being used by them. At the same time, we should have an empathy set outside the White House and demand an empathy circle with President Trump and the Gold Star families. And I think that would be something that would be very powerful.
That could be even setting up in front of the like the Congress and saying we want congressional representatives to have empathy circles with each other, and we bring in some conservative and some liberal activists who are actually having empathy circles in the tents, and then say, well, if they can talk, you guys can talk too. So.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's.
So my perspective on that is we are doing something. So we should not discount what we are doing. I think we are having an impact and we are doing stuff. I think it's an interesting idea that you could compel someone into dialogue. It'd be interesting to see what the result of that would be. I'm not sure that you would get the result that you want if you try to coerce someone into a dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a real question around coercing people in the dialogue. It's like, what is the nature of that, and what's going to be the outcome of it?
And I also think that there's an important distinction between public dialogue and private dialogue. So, if you're talking about political figures and you're talking about coercing them into public dialogue, and they agree because they're going to look bad. I'm not sure how much real dialogue you're going to get out of a situation like that. And I'm not saying I know,
Yeah.
but I wonder about it. I mean, politicians are very practiced about being in public and looking good. And if you coerce them into public dialogue, I'm guessing that's what they would try to do. So I think most meaningful negotiation and dialogue happens not in public, not as a public event, particularly where things are really difficult. So I just think that's something to consider.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is for raising those topics. That if we don't, by pushing this, that we're raising the topic. It's like, what is it? The House. Do you ever watch House, the doctor show? So House, he always stress tests people. It's like he can't find what the problem is. So he stresses their body, and you stress it, and then you see where it breaks, and then you fix the problem. So, I don't know why, but that kind of picture came to me that we got to stress test empathy and see what happens.
I think there would be something to say without, to take Lou's idea of like eliminating the coercive aspect of it, but having a dialogue, for instance, on the steps of the Capitol between, conservatives and progressives or liberals, whatever, and doing the empathy circle, and then people seeing it, and then just by showing the example, you've made a statement without the coercion.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, that
I
could be.
I think that's a really good point, Bill.
Mm-hmm. I know there's, in terms of the coercion and non-coercion, I do wonder about the civil rights, in the sense that the civil rights didn't happen without that coercion. It wasn't until the Freedom Riders drove through the South and so forth, or the lunch counter demonstrators, and them getting beat up or seeing the reaction, that change kind of happened. So I also wonder about that and that's kind of the documentary that, that you're working on is that kind of aspect. And I don't know quite, I'm kind of like you. It's like, these are ideas, and it's like, I want to have the kind of a dialogue about them to even think about them. I don't want to do something that's going to be negative, counterproductive, but.
Well, I think our equivalent to the lunch counter sit-ins is going on the Capitol steps and having an empathy circle, and the situation is a little different. So they're not going to bring in the Capitol Police and try to throw us off the Capitol steps. Probably. I mean, I don't imagine that would happen. The way they tried to prevent African Americans from marching across the bridge. Somehow I don't think we'd meet the same resistance, but I don't know. I mean, they do say, people that work in social activism do say that if you're doing something that challenges the power structure, you will get resistance. So I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different kind of resistance, asking for just dialogue and advocating for dialogue. So yeah, it'd be good to if we could test it too in different ways. Sort of prototype it and.
Well, I see all the things that we are doing.
Yeah.
So we are taking the steps, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just throwing things an idea, but I also like the use of humor. I mean, humor can work against you in the sense that if it doesn't seem that you're taking things seriously, you have to be careful. But on the other hand, it is what I like to call it the universal lubricant. It gets people through. And, like for instance, the stress balls, maybe they don't want to do an empathy circle. So they get a stress ball, they go away, but they feel better. I mean, the other aspect of what I was doing, which is an idea similar to Edwin's, and that was I was also offering my services like 37 years as a special education teacher, dealing with, kids coming from hospitals and things like that, and offering my expertise on child behaviorism. And so people think, oh, this is something, it wasn't the empathy circle, it wasn't left, it wasn't right, but I got something here. And what if people could, everybody here has a little bit of a gift or something they could give. It's a very powerful experience, both with me as a person, as the giver, but also as the receiver when they really get something. And you're kind of saying, hey, I'm good at this, check me out. This is what I have to say. And if you believe that, maybe the empathy thing is a good idea too.
Yeah, so kind of offer your kind of service or advice or
absolutely it's professional service outside of this. So we want to help you have the thing that I say, we want to help you have a better day. Everybody's having a tough time. We want everybody to have a better day. And I think that if we can demonstrate that in word and deed, it's very hard to undercut that.
Well, and in the same vein, I think that people are going to be more attracted to something that they think they understand. Like I have been saying, constructive dialogue. Are you interested in constructive dialogue? People generally say yes. I've been hearing we need constructive dialogue. Is that something you're interested in? People say yes. If you invite them into an empathy circle, they're not quite sure what that is. Sounds a little bit like therapy. Like, do I know what empathy is? No, I'm not quite sure what you're going to be doing to me or what I'm going to be asked to do, because they've never been in an empathy circle before. But constructive dialogue is something that people have been involved with before. And constructive dialogue sounds like a good idea. So, and I'm just theorizing here. I don't know because I haven't done it yet. But so I think it's the words that you use or what you say you're inviting people into, I think probably has an effect on whether they're willing to participate also.
Yes, we want to be able to innovate around these different ideas. When we'd set up the empathy tent in downtown Berkeley, we had someone come by that was an improv acting instructor. We were doing improv acting exercises, which were very, about really reading people's, felt experience in that book by Alan Alda. A lot of the exercises are out of improv.
Yeah.
And so
That's a clever idea.
Yeah.
No, I have the book, Viola Spolin, Theater Games.
Oh, yeah. He mentions that one.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very close friends. I've been involved with creative people. We have a little improv group just for ourselves.
Oh, wow.
We're so good. So no, we really it's turned into like more of a therapy group and stuff over the years. But we do a lot of those games, and that they're very effective. There's one like a music game where you kind of add a beat and then peel off, requires a lot of listening. And then there's also the mirror game where you're kind of following people.
Uh-huh.
And get to a point where you're following the follower, where the people enter into sort of a synergistic movement.
Yeah, that would be something like if your group wanted to come to the tent and actually lead, especially that mirror one. Alan Alda mentions it specifically as like really a powerful one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see. I don't know, but I can do a few.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah. So those are the kind of things. Another idea we had is one thing I'd set up was an empathy test. So there's this exam from Simon Baron-Cohen, from the Autism Center at Cambridge, and they have 36 eyes, photos of eyes like this, and you can read emotion in the eye, and they have like multiple choice, 4 choices, and I've got a whole printout of those. I printed them out and then created a banner that I hung, the first 10, from the tent, and then it says, take the empathy test, a little bit like Scientology. So it's like, if it works for Scientology, it can work for us. So, and then I said, how empathic are you? And I had a form there, and people would check off, the first 10. And then, I'd say, and then I had a binder that people could say, there's 28 more of these. Would you like to sit down? So it's kind of like bringing people in. They'd sit down and go through this whole test, and we'd end up in a dialogue about empathy. And you really learn about people too, because there's some people they just can read the emotions right off, and others are just really struggling with it. So
yeah, we had a funny poster of that at school where all those faces were just Darth Vader.
It'd make it easy. Or,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a famous thing.
Anxious.
There's a famous thing from film school where if you take a shot of a face and then you cut to a shot of a plate of spaghetti and then back to the face, then people think that face looks hungry. And if you insert something else, then they, if you insert the shot of a woman, then it looks like desire. Or if you insert a shot of something else, something horrific, then it looks like horror.
It builds those neural networks, those associations with that felt experience. Yeah. Well, that's the kind of things one thing like I was mentioning on Occupy Empathy is about having a space to do these kind of creative ideas, because the Empathy Tent got started at the Occupy Wall Street, and it was really, here in Berkeley, and it was a real disaster. I always thought, well, if we could have started on the value of empathy and having empathy circles and build something up from there. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. On November 4th, the Refuse Fascism, it looks like they're going to maybe try and Occupy, reignite the Occupy. I'm not quite sure, but that's something that's coming up. So, I don't know. Yeah, they're going to be having rallies all around the country, and then I think they might actually try to rekindle the Occupy movement. I'm not sure, what's going to happen with that. But anyway, it kind of relates in terms of the public, setting up the Empathy Tent in public. If we set up, there or not, So anyway, that's something to think about. I'm not quite sure what to do. Like if they set up in Berkeley or in other parks. So. Anyway, that's just something. So that's kind of it for me. If anybody, we can probably close unless somebody else has something. Oh, how was the meeting? Yeah, if we could go around, how did the meeting go? Well, I'm getting a little tired. Sorry. It's if there's nothing else, we can just kind of do a wrap up. Like, how did the meeting go? Is there anything else that anyone wants to say? No. Okay. So how did the meeting go? And what can we do to make it more effective? We had talked about that. Was that how we were going to frame it, Lou? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what are you taking away?
Yeah.
I would say the meeting was good for me. For a meeting that starts at 7 o'clock, I'm realizing that about an hour and a half is the most I can do. I'm really kind of fading. I appreciate the connection and I appreciate the discussion. I think the discussion's been really interesting. And even the empathy practice, which I was a little worried that, that would not be that satisfying for me. That was actually really interesting. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, I'm getting used to the process, and I'm finding it valuable. The conversation was stimulating, and looking to take next steps.
Yeah, it's good to be back, I guess. It was the first meeting in a while. I thought it was very good. I thought it was energizing, and I felt like we did make good connections.
Nice to meet you, Pablo, and I'm glad I have an assignment, Edwin. I'm looking forward to our next meeting on November 1st.
Okay.
I have a question for Pablo. Where are you going to school and what are you studying?
I'm at Berkeley City College, and I'm sort of flip-flopping majors, but right now I'm thinking more of studying psychology. Before I was studying sort of philosophy, but I'm making a switch.
Thanks. Appreciate knowing that.
Yeah.
Well, I always feel energized being with fellow empathy enthusiasts and kind of exploring and growing, and so I'm really enjoying that. And I think that so maybe cut the time to an hour and a half going forward. I think that makes sense. So, okay, well then we'll see you in 2 weeks. Otherwise, you're in Berkeley next week.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.